Here we go.
Yeah. Do you want to start or am I going to start?
We could both start at the same time if you want.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome. This is like that really bad mirrors game where you're trying to guess what the other person is going to do, and you have that we did it so well even though there's a massive delay between what we're saying. Welcome everybody to episode 7 of Esoterica, which will be going out on Christmas Eve. Yay!
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So we're hard at work here on this beautiful sunny day, trying to record multiple episodes for you so that you don't have to miss out on Esoterica podcasts over the holidays. And so we can take a break.
Nostalgia is a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing. I think we base a lot of our lives on nostalgia, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever you think of memories, so many of our lives, this is getting somewhere, I promise.
Okay. This is a hard open, this one.
This is a hard, I'm going in cold.
Okay? Yeah. You're just straight in there.
Yeah. Phrasing. So, a lot of our lives are really, we get through the day based on a lot of nostalgia, don't we? On what we think or perceived as being really great back, way back when.
The old rose-tinted glasses sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, the Never-Ending Story. That was really fun. I remember that being a really fun film. Or, Return to Oz. Or Pan's Labyrinth was a normal film.
See, I've never seen Pan's Labyrinth.
Why did I say Pan's Labyrinth? I thought in my head The Labyrinth.
Do you mean The Labyrinth?
Pan's Labyrinth is a very, very good film.
I've seen trailers and stuff of it in from ages ago, when it first came out, and was it Guillermo del Toro? I just remember kind of watching it and going. I mean, I suppose it does link to The Labyrinth in that whole kind of way that's probably how I remember The Labyrinth as a child. I remember looking at all the stuff and going, it's like some kind of drugged out fever dream of scary monsters and that sort of stuff.
Pan's Labyrinth, I think, is one of those films that people went to go and watch and were expecting something completely different. Pan's Labyrinth was dark. Really dark. Of course, it's Del Toro, so, no surprises there. But of course, it was set during the Spanish Civil War.
Always good for light-hearted fun.
Yeah. So of course, that's why the Spanish weren't that involved in the World War at the time, because of the Spanish Civil War going on at the time.
They'd already been bombed by the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. And very dark. In fact, there's one scene which, if you haven't seen it, I won't ruin it. But everyone who's seen it will know what I'm talking about. That horrible, horrible, horrible scene that came out of nowhere, very in your face. Probably not the best wording for what actually happens, but. It's really, really horrible. I remember seeing that film when I was reasonably young, because you expect something really mystical and magical, and instead you get a really dark and confronting way that a young girl used coping mechanisms to deal with the horrible stuff going on around her.
Jesus. I remember looking at it and thinking, again, I wasn't quite so young whenever it came out, but I remember watching trailers of it and stuff and going, maybe not for me, because I'm not a big horror fan, and it just looked like it just strayed a little bit into that kind of
it does it has its
horrific
moments.
Genre, and I was like, nah, not for me.
It's not as it's not as doesn't go as far as being
horror
Lars von Trier or but it's no, I would say if you're a fan of fantasy, you'll find something in there you enjoy. It doesn't get that horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say horrific, when I'm referencing that scene, it's not scary, it's just really disturbing and sad. So Pan's Labyrinth, amazing film, one I should actually watch again, but massive digression. Wasn't even the point.
No.
But so music, music. I'm examples of stuff that sometimes ages really well. Sometimes it really doesn't. Sometimes it really doesn't. You only have to get out a couple, old copies of Now That's What I Call Music. 125.
No. Here's the wonderful thing. Do you know I actually owned Now That's What I Call Music #1.
Oh, wow.
I did many years ago. So I've been there for the whole.
You've been
Now
there for
That's
the whole
What I Call Music.
You've been through the journey, and
I've been there. I only ever bought one. It was only the very first one. I can't even remember what was on it.
what year did that come out?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I was
Must have been
younger and full of hope.
Early 90s, late 80s or something?
No, it actually wasn't that early, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
It would have been late 90s. The Now That's What I Call Music stuff. Like, they just put out so many so quickly. That's why it's late now. That's What I Call Music 168 or whatever it's up to. I don't know. Do they even still do them? They even still make
I don't
CDs?
know. I assume so. I mean, they just put a playlist up on Spotify. And I don't know.
That's kind of like, and that's kind of going to tie into what we're sort of going to talk about today. So welcome along. Oh no, here we are. Producer Caroline showing us it's now up to now. Now That's What I Call Music 58.
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It does.
Now That's What I Call Music 58.
Did you enjoy number 47?
If you enjoyed 44, you'll love 53. And it's $25 at the Wii. Imagine spending $25 on a CD.
To play in what?
You can't even put them in your laptops anymore.
No.
You have to buy an external USB drive.
Yeah.
And then you've got to download that music to iTunes. So then you'll go for a run and you'll go into your iTunes and then you'll find, oh, actually, because it's not on Apple Music or on Spotify or Google Music or whatever you're...
Oh, and here's what grinds my gears, right? Like talking about useless freaking things.
Yeah.
Like, so as you know, I've just moved house, right?
Yeah.
So still waiting for my internet to be connected because obviously it's Christmas and so nobody connects internet over Christmas. I'm going to have to wait until January for it to be connected, right? So I'm sitting there going, really want to watch something. Don't have Freeview because I don't watch, normal TV. Not going to watch Netflix or something because I've got no internet, right? So I'm like, that's right. I've got a whole heap of old DVDs lying around somewhere. I was like, maybe I'll chuck something like that on, right? Go to chuck something on my PS4, comes up going, you can't play a DVD, you need an internet connection to and I'm like, if I had an internet connection to download the patch needed to play DVDs in my PS4,
goodness sake.
I wouldn't need to download the patch because I'd just be watching Netflix or something like that. I was what the hell? So I had to pull out the...
Remember the days when game consoles, you could plug them in, put in a game and actually play it?
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it?
Still 80 gigs worth of installation and just glorified computers now.
By the way, this needs a 120 gig patch.
Yeah. By the way, you didn't think we had completed
the
game before we released it, did you?
Yeah. So then I had to this is like ultimate first world problems, right? So then I had to plug in the Xbox One. And that played DVDs and that was fine. But I was just really irritated about it because I was like, why would I need to download something in order to get it to play a DVD? Like surely it's not that uncommon.
It's a whole generation behind,
it just really annoyed me. But after that slight digression, welcome to Christmas Eve. I feel like we should be way more Christmassy. I feel like that's right. There's
Merry Christmas.
Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like, the cups they use in like the Depression dinner, being like please give me some money. Please, sir, I want some more.
It's actually a glass of whiskey on the rocks.
Oh, yeah. You can't lie now, you see, because producer Caroline's actually filming this. Whether any of this film footage will actually go out to you remains to be seen.
Probably.
Or remains to not be seen, as the case may be. But that's I feel like we should be Christmassy. I feel like we should be wearing what are you doing now?
No, it's not working. Sorry.
Anthony's trying to improvise Christmas sounding things. I feel more Christmassy already. I don't know what that was, but I feel more Christmassy already. But I feel like we should be sitting here in terrible jumpers, even though it's 27 degrees outside. We should be sitting here in terrible Christmas jumpers, and there should be tinsel everywhere, and all of that. Well, okay, look. sick of being
21
corrected.
degrees.
Sick of being corrected about facts. Feels like 27, producer Caroline. Feels like 27. It's just because I have to sit so close.
Oh no! Apparently, it feels like 21 degrees according to the weather app.
Yeah, because the weather app's never been wrong. 100% accurate. It's just because I have to sit so close to Anthony. That's why it feels like 27 degrees. Because he's so hot.
Oh.
So
what was the point I was trying to make? Oh, okay. So the point I was trying to make, just in a nutshell. Okay. Nothing was as good as we thought it was, and everything now is better. There you go.
The end. That's the end of the podcast.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk a bit about nostalgia, aren't we? Nostalgia and looking back on things, because Christmas is a time that we like to look back, and we think very fondly about time spent with family members and those kinds of things, and stuff that we used to watch. Like, and everybody has like those Christmas traditions, yeah. Like everybody has those Christmas traditions where they like watch certain films or they do certain things, and it sort of doesn't feel like Christmas unless you watch
You
it.
have to watch Love Actually, New Year's Eve.
That's become a really big one, eh? Like I know so many people now who are like, because Love Actually's not that old, is it? Like it's 2000 and oh god, I'm going to guess here, but like is it like 2012 somewhere around?
Oh no, older than that.
Older than that?
Way older. Yeah.
I don't know. Now I'll be fact checked.
I think 2008. Maybe.
Okay, so we've guessed 8
I
and
guess
12.
2008.
Producer Caroline will pull up the facts now in a second, and we'll both be horrifically wrong. No dates. No, we're no.
We'll never know. We'll never know.
It's one of those conspiracy theories. Christmas actually. 2003.
Whoa.
We're both very wrong.
Wow.
So that film's what, like 15 years old? Wow. But it's become like a real like Christmas tradition for people. People will like, I know so many people and so many families who are like, no, Christmas Eve we watch Love Actually, and you kind of go, okay, yeah, it's a bit of a Christmassy film,
bit of
right,
fun.
kind of bit of fun, yeah. And what are the other ones that people tend to watch? Is it
Die Hard.
Die Hard,
Bizarrely.
bizarre Christmas film that people tend to watch, or is it Life is Wonderful or something like that? Life, It's a Wonderful Life. That's it. It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, or those
What age
kinds of
bracket's
things.
That's probably for like the older age bracket.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean I don't know that many people.
You hate old people.
No, I don't. It's not true.
No, but people tend to watch that sort of stuff, and the reason we decided to sort of talk about this a little bit today was because whenever I arrived here at Esoterica HQ. Anthony was listening to some music, as you're wont to do, Anthony.
It was what was it? New Deutsch.
New Deutsche Welle, which we
Welle,
kind of assume means like new German wave.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
80s. Yeah.
80s music, and there was all sorts of interesting stuff on there, like
Boney M,
the theme to Never-Ending Story,
Scorpions,
Kraftwerk, yeah. So we were sort of listening to this, and I was sort of saying to Anthony, it's really like slightly bizarre for me because the 80s was my childhood. So it's kind of weird that all of this stuff seems to be coming back round again, because we were talking about maybe we should start like an 80s like synth pop cover band, because like everybody's getting massively into like 80s stuff. We've talked about it before, the vaporwave stuff, that kind of cyber like 80s version of cyberpunk stuff, and all that kind of music. And I was like, it's really strange for me, because this is really kind of the first time in my life. I know they sort of did a flirt with the 90s thing a little bit, a little while ago, but it really wasn't, hugely the same as the 90s. But there seems to be this massive, like, huge flirtation with the 80s again, this huge revisit of, like, the aesthetic, of the sound, of all that kind of stuff. And it's sort of weird for me because it's the first period that I've lived through the first time, if that kind of makes sense. And, I have school students coming to me being, have you heard of this band? Like, Kraftwerk. Yes, I have. Or
I think a person at work...
Have you heard of Radiohead?
A person at work the other day was saying that their son was playing something. Like, this song just came out, Dad. You have to listen to this.
Yeah.
Started playing it, and then his dad started singing along to it, and his son just couldn't believe it.
Well, you're so cool.
The song was "I Was Made for Loving You" by Kiss.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because the song isn't new.
Yeah. This is old.
This is 30 years old.
Be older than that now, isn't it? Is it 70s?
Yeah, I think it's about 77.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So that's like 40 years old now.
Wow. Yeah, true, because you think, and again, we're programmed to think 70s was 30 years ago.
Yeah. Look, I still think...
Like the 90s were just the other...
Like, I still think, like, 2003 was, like, 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's what makes me feel horrifically old. But we were talking about this, and I was saying this about, like, the Never-Ending Story, because the theme for the Never-Ending Story came on, and I remember watching the Never-Ending Story as a child, and it was such a cool film. Now, it's one of those films I haven't watched again since I was a kid. Yeah. I haven't watched Never-Ending Story again since I was a kid, but there are plenty of films that I have. Like, for example, I think a prime one is The Labyrinth, right?
Yeah.
I love that film. The Labyrinth, or, David Bowie's ever-expanding crotch. I think should be the subtitle of that film.
There's some weird stuff going on in that film.
Oh, that film is hugely weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's stuff that you would only get away with in the 80s. Like, you couldn't get away with making that film now. You couldn't get away with going, okay, what's the premise of the film? The premise of the film is the Goblin King abducts a child in order to force, like, a 17-year-old girl to marry him. Like, it's like, it's creepy in the extreme.
Pretty weird.
But, it's just that whole innocent 80s thing where people are like, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Now, I have shown The Labyrinth to some people who've never seen it before, because Labyrinth is one of my favourite films, right? I saw it, I've seen it consistently sort of since I was a child. Every time it's on, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And I remember a friend of mine said, I haven't seen this. I haven't seen The Labyrinth. And I was like, you're missing out. Like, The Labyrinth is one of the greatest films of all time, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, you're building it up.
Yeah, but...
It's what we do, We build up these films.
Oh, but like, to me it is. I'm like, it's amazing. Like, I remember being so... I remember being, like, really scared of, those, like... fire things that took their heads off and passed their heads around and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, I loved it, right? And then I remember showing it to this person. I was like, we'll have to watch it. So we sat down to watch The Labyrinth. And you never know how weird something is that you've liked since you were a child until you sit next to somebody watching it who's never seen it before. And it was the first time that I looked at this and went, yeah, I see what you mean. It's kind of weird. And they were like, and they came out at the end of it going, no, not for me. And I was like, and I remember feeling like quite disappointed, because I was like, this is one of the greatest films of all time. But it taught me a very valuable lesson, and I think it's that nostalgia thing. It's the nostalgia for me, because not only do I remember where I was, I remember being a child, I remember all those kind of feelings that go along with watching The Labyrinth.
Your childhood's tied up in it.
That's right. So it's not just watching the actual film.
No,
it's all of those memories of stuff, and it is one of those films I think you have to have seen when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just watch it and go, this is some weird stuff. Weird stuff. But if you've seen it as a kid, it's one of those things. And look, I have heaps of films like that again, because, I'm an 80s kid, and, like,
I think my equivalent's Return to Oz. I don't know if have I talked about that before on the podcast? I feel like I might
little bit. You've talked about it a little bit.
Yeah. Return to Oz, for me, really bizarre how that came about. I think they got the rights to it. Disney got the rights to it, which was a bit of a coup, I believe, because of course MGM had the rights to the original, but because it was based on the books and it wasn't the so it was a sequel. It was a sequel from the books, not the musical. So I think a lot of people went and saw Return to Oz expecting that MGM grandeur that you got with the first one, and the
like the whole nicey colourful, like because I mean that's why it would have been a coup too. Like, they would have sat there and gone, oh my god, Wizard of Oz, one of the biggest films of all time. Like,
exactly.
We get to do the sequel. Yeah,
and they went in a completely different direction, and it was really dark. I love it. To this day, I love it, and I'm the same as you. Whenever I show it to people, they kind of go, but I think it's a an amazing film. But I mean, of course, you've got things like, anyone who's seen it will be able to relate to things like the wheelies. They're terrifying.
That film is legitimately terrifying.
It is. And the is it Princess Mumby who has a corridor of heads?
Oh yeah.
So she takes off her own head, and then when you say it out loud, you think, "Oh, that's disturbing."
Yeah.
And that scene where Dorothy tries to take the key, because I think that has the elixir of life behind one of the cabinets, and she tries to take the key, and she's trying to take the key from the wrist of the sleeping headless woman.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And this dark castle, but it's so I think I love Return to Oz. I really do, but again, I can understand the whole nostalgia. I saw it when I was very, very young, and and the thing is, I love the original Wizard of Oz as well. But they're two completely different.
Not even vaguely the same. You see, Return to Oz triggered me, right, and it triggered me because I remember being very young, right? And one of the first horror films I ever saw was Sleepy Hollow. Not the Johnny Depp remake thing, but the story of the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane and all that sort of stuff. It scared the pants off me. Like absolute. Like I have never been so scared in my entire life. Like legitimately, even to this day, whenever I'm walking by myself in the dark, I still have this thing about the Headless Horseman. To me, it is the scare. Like, it traumatized me as a kid, right?
Yeah.
So, watching Return to Oz, and suddenly you have this headless woman. It just like all those fears inside. Just the
characters were amazing in that film, like TikTok and no relation to the new social media.
TikTok by Kesha.
And
is it Kesha?
Kesha.
Kesha? I don't know.
Yeah, formerly K $, huh? Now Kesha. She's actually doing really well. She's pretty awesome now. If you want to listen to some good pop, listen to Kesha. So
that's a plug. Plug from Anthony.
It's a plug. Seal of approval. TikTok, Jack the Pumpkinhead, who is a great character. It just had some really great characters in it, and that was always what made the Wizard of Oz series. Was it Frank L.
Baum? Yeah. But like it's like Return to Oz, right? Was like it was kind of like the only way I can rationalize it in my head. It was kind of like they'd taken a film directed by Baz Luhrmann, right? And then
they were like, Luhrmann's Wizard of Oz would be amazing.
Yeah, and then the sequel, they were like, who can follow this up?
Del Toro.
Or like, yeah. Exactly. Or like Tim Burton. Like
it's not.
That's who's going to follow this up.
If it was Tim Burton, everyone would be pale skin with black.
Johnny Depp would be in it.
Johnny Depp would be the lion or something. No, the lion didn't really feature in that film. What would Johnny Depp be? He'd be Princess Mumby.
Yeah. No. That would be what's her face? Who's his ex-wife?
Helen
Bonham Carter would have been Mumby.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp would have been
Jack the Pumpkinhead. He would have been Jack the Pumpkinhead.
Dorothy. No. Jack the Pumpkinhead. Yeah. Like But it was one of those films I could never really get on board.
It's a masterpiece.
I could really get on board.
It's actually a masterpiece.
So seeing as we're talking about nostalgia and we're talking about sort of Christmas nostalgia and we're talking about films and that sort of stuff, being as we thought we'd keep this relatively lighthearted, seeing as it's Christmas Day tomorrow. We're going to go back to the only scale that matters, but I'm not going to ask you about the quality of the film, right? Because we're going to be biased, right? Like if we talk about how we feel the quality of the film is, then it's just going to be like 10s all the time. So what I want to know, right? What I want you to weigh up is the nostalgia factor. So how much of this film is good quality film versus nostalgia factor? Does that make sense? Yeah. So how much nostalgia is wrapped up in your opinion of this film? So off you go, 0 to 10. 10 being if you have no nostalgic sort of connection to this film, then you're going to hate it. Zero being it's a stunning film. Doesn't matter, nostalgia doesn't come into it at all.
Oh, right, I see. Okay, it's sort of a reverse.
Yeah.
It's really hard because Return to Oz was a huge part of my childhood. I feel like it actually shaped from there on in my sort of...
Explains so much.
I'm so screwed up.
Yeah.
I love that dark take on sort of modern stories or even older stories. I love that take and that style. I thought it was so stylized, and I would probably go, because I do genuinely think Return to Oz is actually a very well-made film. I think it's and I don't think it got treated fairly because, of course, Disney didn't end up backing it because I think they saw the test screenings and went, this isn't quite our target demographic.
And of course it's Disney, and that like at the time it released, that did not fit Disney's profile at all.
It did not. However, I can't say I don't have a huge amount of nostalgia wrapped up in it. So I'd probably go. I think it's half and half. I think 5 nostalgia, 5. I think. If I were to say like what I genuinely thought of the film, I'd probably go like a strong 9 or 10. I actually think it's a phenomenal film.
Yeah.
And I think the characters and everything. It's just really, really good. It's a film that I think you won't get films like that anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was back when films didn't need to be a sensory overload.
Yeah.
It concentrated on the characters and on the set pieces, but it wasn't over the top. It's a classic adventure film, so you go from point A to B. Yeah. There's a true adventure going on. It's not just endless explosions and action, and it didn't treat its audience like they were that they had a short attention span so I love that I miss that.
Can I just segue slightly and say that sorry before I segue slightly. So what you're saying is that you think obviously the film's a 9 or 10, but you're saying about 5. So you're saying that you could watch this film, appreciate it as a great film, but there is a nostalgia factor
I'm never going to
tied
shake
up into
that.
it. So I want to segue slightly, just based on what you've said about the whole sensory overload, explosions all the time, that sort of stuff, not focusing on characters, that kind of thing. I personally feel that exactly the same thing has happened in theatre at the moment. Like shows now, and I'm glad to see, like in some ways it's starting to come back. Like there are some, I'm going to say smaller shows, and I don't mean that in terms of their box office appeal or that sort of stuff, but I mean in terms of
the setup, the cast,
set pieces, the cast size, the that sort of stuff. Like Waitrose, like Dear Evan Hansen, Waitrose the musical. Waitrose the musical. Waitrose.
It's about the struggle
about the supermarket.
With 2 star-crossed lovers, Waitrose and Sainsbury's.
That's right. Waitrose the musical, Dear Evan Hansen. Those kind of shows. Which are coming back the last 5 years, which are coming back into that very character-driven, storylines, those kinds of things. We're moving, thank God, we're moving away from the Wickeds, those sorts of things, where the set pieces and the tricks are more important than the actual storytelling. Like, oh my God, they can fly. Oh my God, people disappear. Oh my God, there are explosions.
Yeah, because I think Gillian Davies summed up shows like that really well. She just said they're just song, costume, dance. There's not much depth to them. I think she's right. There's not a whole lot of depth there, and it's great if you just want to sit back and turn off, but if that's all you're after, then fine.
Yeah.
The Michael Bay's.
The Michael Bay of musical, So sorry, that was just a slight aside. It's something that's concerned me for a while. So back to the scale.
There's a reason for that. Audiences lap it up. They love it, don't they?
Well, people pay for it. So clearly,
it's one of the saddest. For me, it's really, it's hard to reconcile that. But you could put something on.
But here's the thing, right? Yeah. Like, to a certain extent, I know that sometimes the argument is made that this is what audiences pay for, so therefore, this is what we have to do, blah 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 blah. But I think there's sort of another side to that argument as well. That where there's a bit of an Emperor's New Clothes kind of thing that goes on with it. Yeah, there's a bit of a you have to enjoy the show, or people have to say that they enjoy the show, because if they don't, they're kind of out of the loop. Or I think also too that I can understand the appeal of having a big trick in your show. I can understand the appeal of at some point having somebody flying. Think Mary Poppins. I can or
Mabel.
Or flying out of the audience, or a Wicked, or a Phantom Chandelier. Having a big trick, because that's going to pull people in through the door. Because people are going to go, oh man, I really want to go and see how they do the chandelier. I really
because when you talk to your friends about a great moment in a show, you're not saying, oh, I really liked the tableau they used in the office scene. They're going to talk about, oh yeah, and the chandelier flies. Or, oh yeah,
yeah. So I understand the appeal of that, if you know what I mean, and I can understand that to a certain extent. It's easy to do a show like that in terms of your marketing of it. You turn around and go, oh yeah, we've got this massive chandelier that crashes into the stage, and that's going to put bums on seats. At least get bums in the door, right? But I don't necessarily know that its audiences enjoy it more. Like if you look at again the success of shows like Dear Evan Hansen, of what is it, The Curious Dog, and the
Curious Incident of
the dog which was phenomenal. I saw it in the West End. Phenomenal play.
Set design stunning for that.
Set design is stunning and very clever. Not huge tricks, but very clever. Or Waitress, or those kind of, the appeal of those kind of shows that you don't have to have massive tricks for audiences to actually enjoy them.
People want emotional investment.
Absolutely. But I'm kind of glad that we're curving back round, if you know what I mean.
Do you think that's the new generation coming through? Yeah. Because there's a lot of, I think because of social media, I've noticed a lot of young people are really getting into Broadway in a way that I don't ever remember before, because they, there's more exposure to that stuff now. Back when we were growing up, we didn't have access to Broadway shows.
Well, you could only, or even really shows in general. Like as a general member of the public. Now I know you grew up in theatre. I didn't. So sort of the only way that I would be exposed to a show would be through doing it. So one of the local societies or whatever is doing it, or it's touring around here. And again, 20 years ago, that was a hell of a lot rarer in terms of people, big shows coming to New Zealand, that sort of stuff, than it is now. Or, if you found the show CD in the record store, which again is, you talked about in a previous episode, the filter theory, the grand filter theory. It's kind of the same thing. Like, to get that kind of distribution, a show has to be, of a certain kind of size and a certain kind of box office appeal. So you're only going to get shows like your Phantoms, like your Les Mises, which is why...
It's a very good point.
So many of us grew up on those shows, was because they were actually the only shows that we had access
through to the mainstream.
That's right. Yeah. We didn't have... And this is where Andrew Lloyd Webber was really clever with the whole write a pop song, whack a pop song in there, even if it's completely at odds with the rest of the musical.
Quite often was.
Whack a pop song in there, because if I can get chart play and radio play on the pop song, I can get distribution for CDs and, that sort of stuff. My shows will get out to a much wider audience. Yeah. I think you make a very valid point in terms of the fact that kids or anybody these days with the internet, that sort of thing, has access to any new shows that have come out that have never been
It's no longer record labels that are determining the popularity of something, which I think is really... And you see that everywhere. You see it with film. It's why I think the indie film industry is booming at the moment, and it's in a really great place. Music's the same. Music's a funny one. It's more accessible than it ever used to be.
Take Macklemore, for example. Again, somebody who refused to sign to a label and went, no, I can market and do all of this stuff myself.
Yeah. And even a lot of the big bands now have pulled away. Bands like Nine Inch Nails and Radiohead, they all pulled away from major labels to have more creative control. because they no longer needed that backing.
No, so it's to get distribution or to get yourself out there. So I think it's a great thing. Coming back to the scale and coming back to Labyrinth. Now, coming back to Labyrinth in terms of how much of it is a good film.
Yeah. What do you think,
and
James?
how much is nostalgia?
Where's that on the scale for you?
I reckon it's about a 4. Right, okay. So I reckon that there's a very heavy nostalgia thing tied up in the Labyrinth. I think it's one of those things that you have to have seen sort of when you were a kid. There has to be a level of nostalgia there. I think it is, and again, for its time, I think it was an incredibly progressive film and incredibly technically complex. What they did and all that sort of stuff. And I think there's a certain element of you can watch that and
they
go...
used Jim Henson puppets and stuff.
They did, yeah. So there's a certain element of, watching that and going, wow, that's really cool. And like, they did that. But I really think it's one of those films that I don't think you're going to love it. If you haven't seen it sort of when you're a kid and you're coming to it much later on, unless you have a real... nostalgia thing for that 80s kind of film, again, adventure story from point A to point B, that sort of stuff, it's going to be okay. You're not going to go, this is an amazing film. For me, it's a 9 or a 10, because again, it's that I love the film like so much.
And you can't say it's a poorly made film, it isn't.
No, it isn't.
Very
and
well made film.
That's why I sort of give it a 4 or 5. Like, I think you'd watch it and go, oh yeah, okay. But I don't think that you're going to like obsessively fall in love with it.
Well, here's maybe a controversial opinion.
Ooh. We don't have those on this podcast.
Dark Crystal's better.
Yeah, controversial opinion. No, but I understand why you say that. It's a more linear adventure story.
Yeah.
Production value was higher.
Yeah, I think by that point did.
It's less sort of like I think one of the problems that the Labyrinth had, right, is it's kind of a David Bowie album release, tied into a film, and so you kind of have these weird moments where, David Bowie breaks into song and we just have a random like.
Come out of nowhere.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of and like because there was sort of because it was going to be tied up with the release of some of these singles and stuff. Like you get these really weird moments that are kind of like pop videos in the middle of like essentially the
80s is when they really started to look at really heavily marketing, branching off with films, wasn't it?
Yep.
Like with Labyrinth, with the music side of it, with things like Star Wars, which I guess was late 70s, with merchandise, with Indiana Jones and action figures.
Yeah.
It's when they really started to, and then you got all those
cross-promotional marketing,
those video game movies which were bizarre, but literally just existed to promote and sell a video game.
Great, or cartoons,
like the Power Glove,
like cartoons, like Masters of the Universe. So Masters of He-Man, for those of you that don't know what Masters of the Universe is, but Masters of the Universe was a cartoon literally created to sell toys. So the toys came first, then the cartoon came in order to sell the toys.
Transformers.
Yep.
Transformer movies. And those
This is all my childhood. Transformers, Masters of the Universe.
How devastated were you when you saw the Transformer film and they killed off
Optimus Prime?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like it
on a scale of 1 to 10.
10. I was devastated. Like it was actually like I remember that moment. I saw that film in the cinema.
Yeah.
And I was nearly in tears when they killed off Optimus Prime. Like it came at exactly the right time for me in my childhood. Was a massive Transformers fan. Loved the cartoons, watched the cartoons all the time. Had Transformers toys, went along to see the film, kind of expecting what you normally got with a Transformers like cartoon, which is kind of like, good guys win in the end, bad guys, Megatron runs away at the end, I'll get you next time, sort of thing. And then all of a sudden he dies and passes on the Allspark, and you're like, what the hell?
Was it Mattel or Hasbro? Excuse my ignorance. Mattel or Hasbro?
I can't remember.
Because there was a huge uproar at the time, wasn't it? I mean, parents were angry because they'd just bought their kids.
Mattel?
Because it was their way. I think it might have been Mattel.
I think it was Mattel.
Because, of course, the reason they did it was to bring through the new generation of toys.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is so cold.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so cold, and kids would have said parents were angry because they just bought these kids Christmas
like
presents.
seriously devastating. Like it was seriously devastating,
and it hurt them for a while, didn't it?
Yeah.
It damaged the Transformers brand
absolutely.
for quite some time.
Absolutely,
and then Michael Bay
damaged it even more.
Desecrated the grave.
Shia LaBeouf.
Megan Fox.
So, okay.
Lingering shots of Megan Fox.
Lingering shots of Megan Fox. So if we're going nostalgia here, I want you to name. You might have already done this. It might be Return to Oz for you, but if not, I want you to name your greatest nostalgia film.
Does it have to be a film?
Let's start with film. Yeah. Your greatest nostalgia film, like the film that you are like, this is this is such a seminal piece of my childhood. This film is like, it's the be all. Like, it's huge.
Probably a tie between two films.
Yeah.
Return to Oz being one of those.
Yeah.
And the other probably being Muppets Treasure Island.
Okay.
Muppets Treasure Island is criminally underrated.
Yeah.
It still holds up. We watched it recently. It still holds up.
Yeah.
Tim Curry, phenomenal. It's genuinely really funny.
Yeah.
However, do you want to know a really interesting piece of trivia?
Sure.
On the subject of pirate films, I found out the other day that Pirates of the Caribbean, the original script, was actually originally, a lot of the content was meant to be for a Secret of Monkey Island film.
Which makes so much sense.
Right? How fascinating is that? I thought that was really
for those of you that don't know, Secret of Monkey Island or the Monkey Island were a series of point-and-click adventure games in the 90s by LucasArts. Fantastic games. Fantastic storylines. Genuinely really, really funny. Guybrush Threepwood in The Ghost Pirate LeChuck or The Zombie Pirate LeChuck or The Demon Pirate LeChuck. Like, genuinely some of the funniest games, like, ever put out there. Great stories, great dialogue. Like, I love them.
So good.
They're some of my favourite games. If we were talking about nostalgic games, mine would be the Monkey Island
We should
series.
probably set aside a whole podcast for
Absolutely.
for 90s adventure games.
Absolutely.
Because I think James and I could talk about them for a long time.
But it makes, now actually watching it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Right?
Demon Pirate, yep. Cool.
Yep.
Captain Sparrow-esque kind of, like, hopeless pirate, like, as Guybrush Threepwood.
And for the sequels, you've got the voodoo woman who lives in a swamp.
Yeah. Like, actually, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. That's really cool.
Jokes were directly lifted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could see that.
The original Pirates of the Caribbean movies, amazing. Phenomenal. Second and third were convoluted, and
I thought the second was good. I thought the third was poor. I thought the fourth was even worse. Like, they just went downhill rapidly.
Don't even watch the fifth.
No. They just went down.
And they've literally just said that Johnny Depp will no longer appear in the...
I'm not surprised. Like,
really difficult to live in. But sorry, going back to Muppets Treasure Island.
Yes, Muppets Treasure Island, yes.
Very, very funny. Great musical numbers. Again, adventure... I seem to have a thing for adventure films.
Yep.
I love adventure films. I love the characters. I think it probably hit me at the perfect age as well, the whole musical sort of aspect of it too. But I thought Tim Curry was phenomenal.
He always is.
Yeah, he is.
And what do you call it? And the Muppets. The Muppets are always cool.
Yeah.
Like, they're always cool.
But very, very funny. And such a good crossover of...
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very funny. And, watched it recently and still, like, laughed. And, of course... Films like that are really neat because you watch them when you're older and you get jokes that fly over your head when you were really young.
Yeah.
Because there's some quite, and you get this with Pixar a lot.
Yeah.
You get it with a lot of Pixar films because, as well, Pixar go out of their way to make a film that everyone will enjoy.
But they understand, right, that if you have kids and you're gonna have to go and see this film too. So it needs to be entertaining for you as an adult as well. Because otherwise you're just sitting there bored out of your skull for an hour and a half or whatever.
And apparently, and it's quite clever. A lot of these films, they like, for example, Pirates of the Caribbean is probably not a good example. Which, by the way, fun fact: Pirates of the Caribbean was the very first R-rated. It was R13. It was the very first R-rated Disney film.
There you go.
There's a bit of fun there. Return to Oz. Return to Oz should have been banned.
Look at you and your, you know,
throwing out some
Pirates of the Caribbean facts.
Don't know why. It's very niche. But where was I going with that? Some of these films, like I believe Transformers might have been one of them.
Yeah.
They purposely made PG or slightly higher ratings so that the parents would go along with the kids.
I see.
So that the parents would then see what the kids want for Christmas. So for merchandise and things. Yeah.
Oh, so cynical.
Yep. Very.
So if you're saying that we've already you've already done your scale for Return to Oz, but on the scale again, you have to have huge amounts of nostalgia. 10, you have to have huge amounts of nostalgia to enjoy this film for Muppets Treasure Island, or 0, you need no nostalgia. You could literally just pick this up and watch it, and you're gonna think it's a brilliant film.
I'd say about a 3. I think
Yep.
Muppets Treasure Island stands up on its own really, really well. The jokes are still very funny. It's just a really well made film.
So you reckon that pretty much you could pick it up.
Yeah.
Don't have to have much nostalgia. It's going to help if you have like a kid or something.
For parents out there, if you're looking for a movie that you'll enjoy and your kids will enjoy, and it's actually really good. I think it's a really good Christmas film as well.
There you go.
Nothing to do with Christmas. It's a bit like Die Hard, where you just feel that kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
But Muppets Treasure Island, good pick because of course it's kid friendly, but you will enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's very good.
There you go.
So I'd say about 3.
Plug for Muppets Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Mine, and of course the film that I think is the greatest film of all time.
Oof.
The Princess Bride. Love it.
Okay.
I cannot tell you how much I love this film.
Yeah.
The book is even better. The book is phenomenal. The film, I just love it. I love everything about it. I love the fantasy setting. I love the fact that it sort of breaks that fourth wall with the way the story's told. I love the fact that it's sort of it's self-referencing all the time, like in terms of the young boy being sick and all that sort of stuff, and being read the story by his grandfather, and the whole not liking the kissy bits at the start and then being happy with the kissy bits at the end, and I thought it was so cleverly done. I wish that, again, having read the book afterwards, I wish that they had more time in the film to actually tell the whole story, because in the book, there's a lot of things in the film they kind of have to gloss over in order to kind of keep the runtime down. But it's a phenomenal story. I love it. It was so perfectly cast. It's just, which makes it really bizarre for me whenever I see House of Cards, the American version, because I just see her as Princess Buttercup, which is kind of weird. But
quite different character.
Kind of different character.
Yeah.
But I love that film. I love it so much, and I watch that again. And I love that it's entered pop culture so much that the Deadpool like advertising thing calls back to it with having what was the name of the actor? Is it Fred Savage? In bed, while Deadpool's there, sort of reading him, like talking to him about stuff. Like I love that it's become so like ingrained in pop culture that it's still I mean, this is an 80s film, so like it still holds up. Like 35 years later, 40 years later, people still get the reference, or still still enjoy that. I love that film. I love it so much. However, if I come back to the scale of how much sort of nostalgia do you need to have tied up in it to actually enjoy it, it's probably a 50-50. I think, again, it's the sort of thing that if you're watching with a younger person, they're going to really enjoy it. I think that it helps if you saw it when you were younger, because again, you have that magical sense of stuff tied up in it. But I do think that to fully appreciate it, you do have to have that nostalgia factor. You do have to have that.
So you're about a 5.
About a 5. I mean, about 50-50. I think you could sit down and watch it and go, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. I think you're going to enjoy it much more if you have a young person watching it with you, like a kid watching it with you, because they're going to have that sense of magic and wonder about watching it. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe this is what I mean. Maybe it's less nostalgia and more like when you first see this film, you're getting nostalgic not for the film, you're getting nostalgic for that sense of magic and wonder that you had because you believe, like, you know, that's when you watch it as an adult, you go, oh, that, you know, okay. you don't lose yourself.
Yeah,
in
when
that
you're watching
sort of,
it as a kid, you lose this. You're not cynical. You lose the cynicism.
Yeah.
And you're ignorant. You know, you haven't really been exposed to. So yeah, of course, everything's new to you when you're a kid.
it's magic.
Everything's it is. It's magic, that's you can't beat that feeling. And people companies have spent millions of dollars trying to recapture that magic.
But think about it, like, and now this is nice. Look, it's almost like we're professionally segueing here. This segues back to the idea of Christmas, and back to the idea that we spend so much money trying to capture or recapture that sense of magic, that sense of wonder, that sense of excitement. We, you know, buy all the decorations. We, you know, here in New Zealand, we cook Christmas dinners. Like, you know, like I know, like my family for a while, you know, cooking Christmas dinners that you would see in the Northern Hemisphere, even though, you know, it's 27 degrees. 27, like, you know, and you're not going to eat like but here, like, what does everybody get from work and stuff? Like a Christmas ham, like, you know, and you eat all this stuff. Like,
Christmas
you
barbecue.
don't eat ham at any other point in the year except for like Christmas, where you eat it for like, you know, 3 weeks solid.
Yeah, because you have it in your fridge.
Or Christmas pudding, or, you know, right down to now we even, you know, buy things that make our house smell like
pine
we've got
needles.
we've got a fresh tree, even though we don't have a fresh tree.
One, especially in New Zealand, hot chocolate on New Year's Eve. That's weird, because it's a hot drink. Why are we drinking hot drinks in the blistering...
I don't know this one. What's that one?
Don't you do that?
No.
I'm sure lots of people do that. Lots of people have hot chocolate, like, on...
No.
Don't know. I know lots of people.
Is this some Kiwi tradition I've missed out on?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's...
Not New Year's Eve?
No, Christmas Eve. Oh, did I say New Year's Eve?
Yeah, Christmas Eve.
I keep doing that. Sorry, everyone. I keep doing that. I keep saying to people at work, like, have a great New Year, and just ignoring Christmas. Like, oh, you don't want me to have a good Christmas?
Eddie just wants this year to be over.
No, I don't. I just want you to have a good New Year's.
You're just like, I've had enough of this year already. Hurry up.
Sick of it.
No, I haven't heard the
Quote Carl Pilkington. I'm sick of it.
I'm sick of it. I haven't heard the hot chocolate on
Christmas Eve. That's a big thing. That's a really big thing.
But even we do all
Maybe
those,
that's in my head.
we do all those wonderful things like Christmas Eve, like what a big one is like in some households. I know people like will open a present on like Christmas Eve, and like,
don't
you
have
know,
the patience or the
that's
self-control.
right. That's right. But I even know people who like my family was never one of those doing one present on Christmas Eve thing. That was a, you know, I kind of was like you, like the whole you know, it's just for people who've got no patience. But the whole opening something on Christmas Eve, like I know a family, for example, who the present that you get on Christmas Eve is quite specific. So it's not you just get to open a random present.
No.
It's quite a specific present, and it's always a book.
So
they spend Christmas Eve reading, you know, sitting around in PJs reading their new book that they've been given for Christmas.
While
probably drinking hot chocolate. you know, that kind of thing. And that's their Christmas tradition. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, and we all know, like, I know Anthony and I have touched on this a little bit before, talking about this amongst ourselves, but, you know, it's all those kind of things that, you know, whenever you move out on your own, like away from your family and stuff like that, when you're younger, you know, you start off with your family's Christmas traditions, but then you just kind of, you become a Christmas tradition vampire. Like you become
a culture vulture.
You do. You just kind of lift like different people's traditions into like your own, and suddenly you go, now this is my Christmas. When I have a family, this is what I'm going to do.
It's called cultural assimilation.
That's right. Yeah. We're just stealing everything.
Yeah.
Can I just say, like, sitting here at Esoterica HQ, and
it's very warm as well.
It is very warm, but every time I glance over towards producer Caroline there, my eye keeps getting caught. Now producer Caroline has a stack of books on a piano, and my eye keeps getting caught by this one book that says practical gastrointestinal endoscopy.
It's quite a thick book too.
Endoscopy? Yeah, endoscopy. Practical gastrointestinal endoscopy. Just for a little bit of light, nighttime reading whenever you're,
Fourth edition.
Yeah, fourth edition.
Very thick,
yeah, I read the first three. They weren't as good as the fourth. It's right next to political ideologies.
Yeah.
And but you have some wonderful reading here. Principles of anatomy and physiology. It's almost like there's, somebody who's, studying medicine in this house. Either that or has a weird fascination with.
But then we also have 75 years of the Oscars,
followed by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We go from that's right. We go from medical journals and wonderfully sort of intelligent stuff to the oral and visual history by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Book no one asked for. No, just kidding.
Or made from scratch baking.
This is a question. So I think
might have an answer.
What I've noticed, do we think this is going to get even bigger in the future? Weaponizing nostalgia. So companies have recognized that people obviously they tick on nostalgia. We all, no matter how much we like to think that we're so up and coming and progressive and ahead of the curve, we all love nostalgia. One thing I've noticed recently which freaks me out is a lot of record companies and bands are releasing anniversary editions of their albums. We sort of touched on this earlier, but it freaks me out seeing things like anniversary edition of albums like the Postal Service album. Saying it's like the 15th or 20th anniversary. I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Or, 10th anniversary of Fleet Foxes. Or,
and you're like, it was only a couple of years ago.
I'm sorry. Or Block Party's Silent Alarm anniversary tour. Are you kidding me? That came out... Oh, wow. 2006.
Yeah.
And things like that. And, of course, as we talked about, Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Maniac.
Yeah.
It. There's so many films that pretty much this amalgamation of like Spielberg and Stephen King and like taking a lot of these and George Lucas taking a lot of these 80s tropes and sort of recycling them, and not in a bad way, in a really good way sometimes, and it's become really popular, and that's where we've had the revival of synthwave and retro pop and things. And is that only going to get bigger, I think, as we... Because we've seen it as well. We've seen it in theatre with the revival of old musicals.
Yeah, is it going to be one of those things though that like it'll have its time and place? Like again, everything will try to there's been a couple of really good things, a couple of really successful things. Like you use the example of Maniac and Stranger Things and that sort of stuff, where you get a couple of things that are like really successful. So what I would expect to see in the next couple of years is like a flooding of the market, of a whole heap of stuff that goes back to that sort of Spielberg 80s vibe or those kind of things. And people will lap it up for a bit and then they'll kind of get a bit sick of it. And we'll move on and I don't know. I suppose what I'm quite happy about with it is that it's an evocation, right? So if you look at something like Stranger Things, it's a much darker story than Spielberg sort of ever would have done. Oh, if you know what I mean? Like, so while it's done, it's done very much in that Spielberg E.T. kind of style, and it's supposed to be. It's a homage to that kind of thing. But I mean, it's a much darker story than ever would have been told in that kind of way. And so, I suppose like what I kind of like about it and why it kind of works is that. It plays on that nostalgia, but it plays on that nostalgia to deliver something new. And I guess they also kind of go, that's who our audience is. The people that are really going to get into this are people who remembered that sort of thing the first time through or were, sort of close enough to that they remember that kind of film the first time around. And so it plays off that nostalgia, but still gives them something new. What I'm not looking forward to is the cheap carbon copies that come out over the next couple of years. I can't
wait for the 25th anniversary of Windows 95.
You're going to reinstall it. Reinstall Windows 95. But I think that pretty much brings us to an end, or we should pretty much wrap up, otherwise we're going to get strangled by producer Caroline.
Yeah. But I guess just
No.
I don't know. I don't want to say be wary of nostalgia clouding judgment, but then why don't we just what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with it, is there?
But just be aware
Embrace
of it. And again, this is what I mean. Like, I'm never going to try and stop showing people like The Princess Bride or The Labyrinth, because I think they're amazing. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
James.
Yeah.
This is an intervention.
I know.
You've got to stop. Random
That's
people on
actually
the street.
this is not a podcast. This actually has been a whole elaborate intervention. I mean, I'm not going to stop showing people like that because stuff like that, because I love it, right? And again, taking on board, the words of Tim Minchin, be passionate about the things you like, and I love that. I love that stuff. And okay, some people might watch it and go, yeah, okay, not for me. Or, somebody might watch it and go, hey, yeah, that was really cool.
Then you know who to cut out of your life.
Yeah, I know. I don't need that kind of negativity in my life. I think that...
it's the great filter.
Yeah. But I think you should be aware of it. Like, I'm certainly probably more aware, having unsuccessfully shown Labyrinth to a few people. I'm probably more aware of how much nostalgia plays on my opinions of stuff like that, and kind of I'm much more aware that a big part of or a big reason for why I like it is because I was young whenever I saw it, and I had that sense of wonder and magic, and it makes me more aware, I suppose, as a director. Like and both Ant and I have directed shows, but it makes me much more aware of that's actually what you're trying to capture. You're trying to capture that sense of wonderment and magic in your audience, because that's actually the powerful thing. It's not hugely necessarily the story or the character development things, although those are very important. It's recreating that sense of wonder and magic, getting adults to forget themselves, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's the huge appeal of nostalgia, right? Is that for an hour or so, we get to remember what it was like to be kids, and we remember that sense of wonder. We remember that before we became cynical bastards and, worn down by life. We remember just having fun and just having no cares in the world other than, it's getting late at night and, once this movie's finished, I have to go to bed, and Santa's coming tomorrow, and and we try to recapture that part of our childhood, I think, and I think maybe that's why it's so prevalent over Christmas. It's because it's where those worlds most align. Yeah, it's where our feelings of magic and wonder were the strongest as children. And it's that bit that we can hope to touch a little bit more easily as adults. And I think that's why people love having kids around at Christmas, because again, it just helps you to touch that sense of wonder and magic, and to lose that cynicism for a while, and we take a bit of a break from our cynicism. So
it's the perfect place to end it. Actually.
I think
that's really well said.
Thank you. So I think that with that in mind, have a wonderful Christmas.
Try and relax and spend some good time with family and friends, and
try and touch that wonder and magic. Be safe. Look after yourselves. Look after other people. As we've said now in the last, I think, 3 podcasts, be kind to retail staff. We were them once. Be kind to people. If you have any opinions, or if you have a film or something like that you think is the greatest film of all time, or a film that's so tied up in your childhood, or that you feel huge amounts of nostalgia for, or that sort of thing, let us know on Instagram or Facebook at Esoterica Podcast, or on Twitter at Esoterica Pod. We'd love to hear. Give it a rank out of 10 on the only scale that matters. How much you think your nostalgia plays into how great that film is, and we'll let you know what we think of the films that you post in there. So from myself, producer Caroline, and Anthony, have a fantastic Christmas.
Merry Christmas.